Yeah! It's Josh Williams here, and welcome to another bonus episode of the One Man Podcast. Today, my guest is comedian and a good friend of mine, Trent McClellan. Trent has performed all over North America. He's performed at Just for Laughs, Halifax, Winnipeg, performed on Canada Reads, I believe CBC's The Debaters, you name it, he's done it. He's also been a writer for This Hour Has 22 Minutes, but I guess the biggest new thing that he's got going on is this coming season he will be in front of the camera, newest cast member of This Hour Has 22 Minutes. So thank you, Trent, for sitting there while I praise you all your amazing accomplishments.
Go on. Oh God. As I wrote it, please, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure I don't miss any of the points. So yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. You're my first phoner interview. We tried, just for full disclosure, guys, Trent has we've been talking for over an hour now already, trying to get Skype to work. We still have it in the background. We can see each other's faces. I'm falling in love all over again. But we've just had issues with the audio quality. It just goes up and down. So we've just decided to do it via the phone. So if you can feel the interest in talking to each other dwindling, it's because it's already been more than an hour. I'm kidding. But thanks, Trent, for bearing with me, because I can only imagine, how frustrating it would be for, real professionals. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, it's been just horrendous. We're like two old men now trying to figure out technology. We've become those two dudes. Just literally, we didn't use Skype for a year, and now it's like, can you hear? Is this? We're yelling at each other on the other end.
Oh, yeah, and there was beeps going on. The volume was going up and down for no reason. We were using different microphones and stuff, so I just quit, and I plugged it into my phone, and that's it. I'm sorry, guys. I tried to be cutting edge, and we're just going with good old-fashioned cellular. So
it's a thing. It's good.
Yeah. So thank you for your patience with this, Trent. I really appreciate it. So to introduce you to all of my my listeners who are not necessarily comedians, and of course to the comedians that are, I just wanted to ask you. Like I said, I mean, there's really not a whole lot that I can't say about you. Like you're one of my favorite people, not only to watch but to just hang out with and chat with. Last year you were doing a show here in Ottawa. We got a chance to, you stayed with us at the house. We had a chance to hang out for a few days. Spectacular time, laughs all the time. And it's the best part is it's effortless. It wasn't like that comedic, everyone's trying to make the other guy laugh kind of thing. It was just a cool opportunity to hang out, have some laughs over just asinine, goofy shit. So yeah,
I remember thinking we were laughing so much through the day. I'm like, am I going to have any energy left for the show at 8 p.m.?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes that can happen when you laugh yourself out. You're like, wow, okay. Oh, yeah, I got to go do this thing now. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've gotten myself, I haven't, here's the thing, because you and I are both, fans of podcasts. And, we were both joking about Burr's podcast, how he's always going, oh, Jesus. And you and I were doing that back and forth for 3 days straight. So it is now the regular part of my, it's in there. I say it just in my day-to-day life from time to time. And I actually said it once in the podcast. Crystal admits it's the only time I have ever edited something out of my podcast. So, I said it. And then immediately I was just in the moment. I was like, that's me channeling Burr, wearing my influences on my sleeve. So I cut it out only because I didn't want to be, that's the only thing I've ever edited. Nothing I've ever said have I edited out of the podcast. But I blame you.
Yeah, thank you.
And your good nature.
I'll accept.
Yeah,
I'll accept blame for that. My wife says that. I slipped that into our conversations as well now, and I'm not even aware of it. She's like, "Yeah, you do that Burr thing," and I'm like, "No, I don't." She's like, "Yeah, you do. You do that Boston accent thing," and I'm like, "When? When do I do it?" And I can't. It's subliminal almost. I don't even realize. So it's almost ingrained. So I gotta probably start recording my conversations and then editing those conversations later.
Yeah, exactly. The New England accent is an easy one to do. Like I went from like the hickish, southerny sort of, "Hi man, what do you do?" to like now my dumb person is the New England loudmouth Peter Griffin sort of thing. Oh, you having a good time there? You doing a good thing?
Yeah.
Just that thing.
Yeah.
It's
kind of a combination. Accent. Yeah. It's kind of a combination of the southern guy and I like that one.
It's like the New Buffoon kind of thing. Is the
New Buffoon? That sounds like a good band. That'll be a new band in England, the New Buffoons.
You think so? England will take that one?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll be like, "Hey, we're the new buffoons, and you're watching much music."
Yeah, of
And they're
course.
just there in the
The England
studio.
bands always come here to promote themselves. Can we get just a little bit more of an audience? A lot of travel.
Yeah, we're playing it. We're playing at Starbucks. Come on down. It'll be fantastic. And that's all
We're
they
taking our
do.
UK band to Canada to play in a US franchise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
great.
the worst manager of all time. I've got a bunch of dates. It's across the country. Okay, we're going to do show after show, night after night. It seats 13 people. Okay, they're going to be Starbucks. All right, free coffees for
Yeah.
everybody.
Do you know
It's
how
going to be
big
amazing,
Starbucks
guys.
is? Do you know how big they're? They're great.
You're playing America. You're welcome. You're welcome, dude.
That's pretty funny.
So yeah, that'll be it. That'll be it. It's wild, eh? How those UK bands like even now, I got my US work visa about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And like it is like starting over in many regards. I'm sure you've heard lots of comedians talk about that, but like
Absolutely.
you realize that going to another country for most acts, regardless of what your profession is in entertainment, is literally like starting over. So I'm always amazed at these British bands who could be huge. Like Robbie Williams back in the day was like gigantic in the UK. And he came to the US and it was like nothing happened. Like people just didn't connect with it. But he's still a massive star in the UK. Like it's so weird how you can just be in your little universe and pod and be that thing. And then you go elsewhere and it doesn't go with you. It doesn't transfer.
Yeah.
It's just it's a weird thing. Because
Like
you would
soccer.
think, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
Like how
Huge
is
everywhere else. We
Canada,
don't care.
yeah, how do we struggle in soccer, men's soccer, and the Americans have gone on to become, one of the, top 15 or 20 in the world. Like they're there, and they were like we were at one point. So actually, one of my podcasts, we talked about that. I talked to one of the coaches here in Calgary, and we had a big discussion about Canadian soccer and stuff and why it is where it is. But yeah, it's weird. It's just kind of weird how things aren't transferable.
Well, maybe because we only have
even though
lawns for like 3 months of the year. That could be
Yeah,
why.
that's
We don't
part
have
of
a
it.
whole lot of fields to run across.
Yeah, but you look at countries like Norway, for example, who gets a ton of winter. They're ranked way higher than we are than Canadians are, and they have way less population. So it's like how, what, something, where do we blame? It's weird. Things that you would think would be obstructions to success actually aren't for other countries. So why is that? We have more wealth than some countries, whereas a country like Brazil or Chile or something, which is far poorer, they tend to do well. And then this piques your interest, and you fall asleep while I'm talking to you here. And I
For you
wake
guys
up
don't
4 days
know,
later.
I'm crossing my eyes at Trent right now. This is why I dropped out of high school. If you throw too much information at me at once, my eyes will roll back in my head. It's like geography.
You're like, when's
class.
recess? When's recess?
Well, we had a great riff on the you doing Canada Reads that, of course, got lost to the Skype failure.
Well, that'll be in episode 3 of this same podcast, which is is a 3-part podcast where we
the bonus features of all the different takes that we do. We should do a blooper reel of all the shit that we tried to record. For anyone who doesn't know, I was talking to Trent because I might bring it back up now. But Trent was part of Canada Reads, which was I learned recently that so it's basically kind of like the debaters about books. But you were saying that you have to read everybody's books, so you all read all the same books. And then you defend your book, and it's a process of elimination thing.
Yeah, 5 personalities in Canada, and we all pick our favorite book from a short list. And then we all meet for 3 or 4 days, and we debate as to which book is the best. And of course, you're defending yours to the death. And then we all also get to vote a book off every single day. But you have to read all 5 and know them pretty well. Obviously, you have to know your own pretty well. And then at the end of the day, there's one book left standing. So my book that I defended anyway, book by Lisa Moore called February is the one that won that year. So yeah, I was saying to you earlier too, it was like the most stress I've ever felt in my life. Like going up on stage and doing stand up, I'm like, I feel at home doing that. Like that's comfortable, like my living room. But defending somebody else's work that they've put like years and years of research into and writing, and now they're handing it to you as a stranger going, here you go, defend that to the world. It's like, okay, here we go.
Well, the whole thing sounds like school. I mean, well, it's like a book club and we all fight to the death. But it sounds like the opposite of the way the world is right now, is everyone reads everyone else's stuff. So you have all sides of the story before you start defending it. And instead of defending like your favorite, pop star or something like that, like, I'm going to defend a book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to gain knowledge, and I'm going to eloquently defend why this book is a masterful piece of art. You know what I mean? And it, like you said, you're not even defending your own works. You're defending someone else's, like a lawyer who just got the case, and you're like, hey, this is my life we're talking about here. And you're like, no, I'll try.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, and what if you I thought about like, what if the roles were reversed? What if an author had to defend my act? They had to sit down and go,
I don't think it's
this is why
possible.
Trent's joke is better than this other comedian's joke. I'd been sitting at home, like, just crushing rum, just going like, oh my God. No, don't say that. Don't say that. I'd just be a total mess. So
I think it'd
it
be
must have been hard for
fun.
the authors to watch.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to listen to someone try to eloquently defend stand up. Like people are you ever see something and then you hear people who are putting like meaning behind it, and even the author's like, fuck, I didn't mean that. Jeez,
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was saying shit that it's like, yeah,
Well,
that sounds way
it's
better than my
funny.
explanation.
It's funny too because I know a lot of musicians feel that way about their song lyrics. Like they don't like explaining what a song is about for that very reason, because someone's going to hear those words and they're going to cut their own life into it and their own history and politics and upbringing, and they're going to get a very different message out of it than what was intended. So they're like, we don't want to ruin that for the listener. So whatever you think it is, it is. We don't want to take that away from you by saying, well, actually, it's about my cat, and I'd rather it just be,
I've thought of this many times in the course of my life. I've listened to so many songs that I've loved, known the lyrics for years, don't understand what the fuck they're talking about in that song. And I'm like, what is wrong with me that I can't understand? Everyone's like, this song is about that. And I never argued. I took zero meaning from a lot of them. A lot, not all, right? There's some songs very
yeah,
obvious what they're about. But
yeah,
but some of the like the 90s alternative songs, like I listen to Smashing Pumpkin lyrics. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Some of them I
yeah,
do, but not a lot of them I'm like, and people, this song's about that, and I go, I guess you must have researched
yeah,
it. I go, I still like it, but I don't know what the fuck they're
yeah.
talking about.
Well, it's funny because I think the parallel to comedy too is like people like wordplay sometimes, and that's why they laugh. Or you make a funny face or make a fart sound and people laugh. Like it's everyone takes what they want out of it and go, that's why I like that, So
Absolutely.
it's not really up to the person who creates it to decide, like, oh, you're gonna laugh for this reason. It's like, no, I'll decide why I'm gonna laugh at that or not laugh. So I think you're right. As like Bill Burr says, once he puts it out in the world, it's no longer his. That's the way he feels about material. I think that's right.
Okay. I
It's no
haven't heard him
longer
say that, but
yours.
that's good.
Yeah, once you put it out in the world, people are going to cut it with their own life and take what they want out of it. I mean, we've had times where I'm sure you've had where someone hears one word in a joke and they're like, they just, oh, you said whatever. And it's like you're kind of missing the bigger point here where I was
Right.
going, but they're hung up on a word or even a topic. So you can't really worry about, you know what your intention was when you said it, but you can't really worry about how someone's going to process it.
No, absolutely, and that's like I said. I mean, that is one of the fun things. You put something out there and people enjoy it for different reasons. Um, and I'm sort of glad that it transitioned back into comedy because, like I said, for my listeners who are not necessarily comedians, and even myself, some of these questions that I have, I don't necessarily know the answers to. But you're from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and I
Yes.
always thought like my first question to you was how did you get into stand up comedy? And I always thought you started in Corner Brook.
Yeah, no, I was living in Corner Brook, went to university in St. John's, Newfoundland, on the east coast of the province. Graduated, worked there for a couple of years, and then I decided to move to Calgary, Alberta, just because the economy was falling apart in Newfoundland. There weren't many opportunities, so moved to Calgary. But in the interim, I was looking at the possibility of trying stand up for the first time. So in Newfoundland, there were no comedy clubs anywhere across the province. There may have been a show or two that came through, but no set up comedy room per se, not an open mic, not a club, nothing. So I was like, hey, move to Calgary. They have open mic opportunities. I want to try it. And the benefit to me was if I go there and it doesn't go well, then who cares? No one knows me anyway, so it doesn't matter. So really, there was nothing to lose. So yeah, that was my first opportunity to go on stage. Probably would have been 2004, I guess. Yeah. So went to an open mic, did 5 minutes. Luckily, it went well. I often wonder what would have happened if it hadn't gone well.
Mm-hmm.
How would I have gone back? But I was fortunate that the audience got what I was talking about, and that was it. I was hooked. I was like, man, this is the best feeling in the world, as you know. So
Absolutely.
it was it.
And there's a lot. It's funny that you're saying, hey, well, no one will know me here. It seems to be, I don't know the percentage, but there's two things people think when they're doing stand-ups. They either bring a ton of friends or they don't bring a single one. There doesn't seem to be someone like, oh, it's my first time, so I brought a friend or two. It's either a giant safety blanket or complete, anonymity or whatever.
Yes.
So,
And I think it's funny. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I always felt like my first time, it would have been more pressure to bring people I know because it would have been like, you're all going to be there for this experience. I have no way of knowing how it's going to go. So, and then of course, when you fill a room with a bunch of your friends and family, it's not really authentic laughs
Right.
because they're just there to support you. Or it goes the other way, they're hyper nervous for you and now they can't laugh because they're so tense and whatever. So I always thought it'd be better off to just go in front of strangers, and that'd be a more authentic gauge as to where I was and what I was doing. But to this day, I still see people like, yeah, it's my first time, and I brought everyone from work, and I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what,
You might
what
need to
did you
quit
do?
your job now. If
Yeah,
this goes
yeah,
bad,
that's
you
what I
start
mean.
talking
Like
about dick and cum jokes. It's gonna be hard to look these people in the face
yeah,
tomorrow.
at the coffee pot, like, that was rough, huh? Last night. That was you go to the meeting today? Yeah, I wanted to keep those two worlds very separate until I knew, okay, I've built a level of competency with this, and now,
Well,
for the most part. But
I had work, friends, and family at my first time, but it happened. It was not my choice. I was going with friends. I've talked about this in another podcast. I was going with friends to open mics a lot, and the first time I got asked to stand up, it was Trevor Thompson, and he was talking to my group of friends because we were going to shows. He recognized us, seeing us over and over again, and he said, hey, what brings you guys? And one of my friends was like, we want Josh to do comedy, and he goes, well, I run a room on this night or whatever. I can put you on this date. And it was like all my friends were like, yeah. And I was like, fine. So they knew it was happening. Like, it wasn't like I checked it out and got it. Like, they were the ones
yeah,
pushing for it. I accepted. And then they just knew when it was going to be, and they all decided they were coming. So,
yeah,
I had
yeah,
the safety blanket there, but it wasn't like, oh, I need this safety blanket. Because now going forward, whenever I have something new, like, I don't even pitch ideas or premises to people anymore, because I know that as soon as I get an idea in my head, I could tell two or three people, and they might nod and go, oh, that's funny. And immediately I go, okay, well, it's not funny then because you didn't laugh out loud. And you know what I mean? Like,
right.
they're just, I know what I want a joke to sound like because I know what it feels like on stage to get a joke that works. And no two or three people sitting around a table or whatever can ever give me that response. So I will immediately doubt it. I'm in that whole, like, the laughter is real on stage. Everything else may or may not be sycophantic or supportive or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you're talking to comedians about a bit, like if you and I were talking, having lunch or whatever, and I got this idea for a bit. You might not laugh out loud, but like you'd go, yeah, that'd be funny. Like we can just do that as comedians. We're like, yeah, that's
Right.
funny because you just know it'll work
Yeah.
or it has potential to work. But I think when you talk to people who aren't in stand up, you see them as audience members. And so when a bit doesn't roll across the table and it doesn't seem to get a laugh out of them, you're like, okay, never mind. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
No,
Stupid.
stupid. I'm
You're
sorry.
like, and you're here. It is totally out of the environment, totally out of context. You're sitting around a table. It's not even a place to. So yeah, it's weird how you can lose confidence in a bit just by the presentation of it the first time to someone. I don't think that's very funny. Like it's like, well, okay, thank you for crushing my dreams, and
Yeah.
the hell with you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
by the way, I'm going to be on at this place, so get some tickets for it.
yeah, this just so you know, because I've had it go the other way where someone thought like, yeah, I don't really see anything there, and I've ignored that and gone to a comedy club and tried it, and the bit did really well. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's no gauge as to how it will go. And I knew a friend of mine one time used to always ask his girlfriend like what she thought of this idea, this bit, and she'd be like, I don't like that, and it's like. You're just talking to one person and this
Mhm.
person is going to shoot it down. It's like, that could be your best bit. That could be the thing that you hang your hat on for the next 2 years, So,
I've had stuff like that where you just go, oh, okay, well, it's this, and you get the feedback, and you go, okay, I'm not going to do it, and then you try it, accidentally. A lot of my stuff is with the crowd work. I'll be talking to someone, and it reminds me of a story, and because we're talking about that thing, I'll go, fuck it, I'll tell the story, and the crowd laughs, and I go, fuck, I've been sitting on this for so long. I was going to try that years ago, and look, it
yeah.
works. But I mean, who
And
knows?
it's such an organic thing, man. Like, you and I have had these conversations before about, it's not just about the wording of something, it's about the volume of it, the tone of it. Do you whisper? Do you add other voices to it? What is it sandwiched in between? The speed in which you do it. Like, there's so many things and knobs to adjust on one particular bit or concept. And so you're always tweaking it. So just to fire a rough draft of it across the table and go, yeah, I'm thinking about doing something like this. It's like, that's not even a joke, really. That's just,
Right.
here's an idea I have, and it could be colored in any different way. So, you have to be very precious, I think, in terms of who you share that idea with, because they can kill it pretty quick. And also, it may not just be a topic they just don't care to hear about. Like, it could be like, yeah, they're just not in that headspace.
Yeah,
You know
and it's not
like,
relatable or anything like that at that point.
no.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's why I say, like, I just, for me now, there's one place that will tell me whether something is funny or not, and that's the stage. Everything else is just, yeah, you can throw it out there, maybe pick someone's brain, but I don't use it as a what do you call it, a barometer for how funny the joke itself is. It's just meh.
Yeah, and you're right, and you don't know. And other times you think something's going to be amazing, and it's not. Other times you're like, yeah, this is a half-assed thought I had about whatever, and that bit does amazing. So it's like, I think John Mayer, I heard him in an interview once. He was talking to a bunch of music school students, and he said, he asked them, how many people here think that they're smarter than the public or smarter than the audience?
Everybody.
And a lot of them everyone put their hands up. And he goes, that's funny. He goes, because every musician puts an album out and they pick, the song they want to be released as a single. He goes, and quite often that song goes up and just crashes. It doesn't do anything. He goes, whereas another song that's 7 or 8 on the album could be the song that's the hit, and all of a sudden everyone loves that. So it's like, who knew more then? The audience always knows more. So they always, and in comedy, the audience will decide what they're going to laugh at and what they're not going to laugh at. So at the end of the day, they are judge and jury, and you put it all out there and see what sticks.
Yeah, and that's really the only way to do it. And speaking of just, of course, trying shit, see how it works. I mean, you started stand up in Calgary. You're doing open mics. Do you remember how long it was before you started getting paid work and sort of moving up the ladder in comedy?
That's an interesting question. We didn't have a lot of stage time available to us. I mean, at the time, there were 2 comedy clubs. You couldn't play both. You could only play one. So we went to amateur night at Yuck Yucks every Tuesday, and you weren't even guaranteed stage time every Tuesday. So, I mean, I would be lucky if I had 2 or 3 spots a month when I look back on it now. Now Calgary has a bunch of comedy clubs, a bunch of amazing, solo rooms. So you can get up 4 or 5 times a week, with good comedy audiences, not just comic back of the room. So yeah, when I look back on that, I'm like, man, that was all done just by one night in one room. And I think probably, after about 2 years, probably I would think I got start getting sent out to, road gigs. And it's funny because earlier I was thinking about who I went. My first paid road gig, was with Jocko Alston that you and Jason were talking about the other day, who was such a great guy. And I went to this horrible bar in northern Alberta, in Fairview, Alberta, which was famously known as the worst gig in comedy. Like, it was. You drove forever. The motel was brutal. The pickup trucks to be outside, heating up in the winter, and just pumping exhaust underneath your motel room door. So you'd be lucky to be alive in the morning. And we get there. There's 4 people there, 4 guys who are just having an off shift from the rigs, playing VLT machines. They have no idea there's a comedy show going to happen. So the girl who's working there convinces them to, hey guys, why don't you shut off the machines and watch our comedians? And it's like, they'd already delayed the show a half an hour, like keep doing it a half an hour because no one was there. It's like, well, wait another half hour. Wait another half hour. It's like, okay, now it's 11
more
o'clock.
Likely, people who are showing up are the ones who are trying to skip the comedy show at that point. Yeah. It'll be over by the time we get there.
A busload of people are showing up here at 11:15 and going, hey, where's the comedy show? Like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And I was opening for Jocko, and I went up there, and it was just absolutely wretched, right? It was so bad. And he goes up, and the wily veteran that he was, he managed to wrangle these 4 guys into just acknowledging the elephant in the room. There was no one there. I just went right into my stand-up, not knowing, like, hey, good to be here. I got a cat, everybody. And they're just, what? What is he? So it was horrible, but we had so much fun on the trip, on the drive up and on the drive back. And he was like so kind and generous that I couldn't wait to get on stage. That next night, I was like, man, I want to get a spot somewhere, try and get on. And I often think if I hadn't gone with someone who had that kind of passion for it and was so enjoyable to be around, I don't know if I'd still be a comedian, because that could have been the wall I would have hit because, it's very different doing comedy in your home club. And then now you go drive 9 hours on icy highways and you got to go be funny in this bar with, it's a very different world.
Absolutely.
So, but he was just so encouraging and so positive, and we just were laughing. And I'm like, that was so much fun, just the offstage part, that I was like, okay, I just washed off that show and I couldn't wait to do another one. But a lot of comics don't get that. That's not their first experience, right? Their first experience is a bad gig, and they're paired up with someone doesn't have a great outlook on the business, is pretty negative about it all. treats them kind of crappily. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, I just feel fortunate that he was the first guy that I did road work with, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've quoted you on a lot of things too. I don't know if now's the time to bring up some of the stuff that you've talked to me about, but I'd love to just share it because I've shared it with a lot of comics ever since you spoke to me about it. I'll throw the term out there, but maybe now we won't go into it too much. But the comedy cancer when you were talking about that, because that's the thing is that at this point in your story that we're at right now, you're starting to learn the ropes or whatnot, and it's very, very interesting because I want to talk more about you and sort of a little bit less about the business. I love talking comedy. It's very hard. Anytime you get a comic talking about comedy, it's like opening Pandora's box, right? You know, or summoning a Ouija board. All right, you got it open. The spirit is here, but now getting rid of it, that's the hard part. But
that's right.
But yeah, I mean, like it's great. Like I said, since then you've accomplished a lot. I mean, like I said, you're a very fun person to be around, and you're a very funny comedian. You've had an opportunity to, like you said, just doing road gigs and stuff. You've traveled. You opened for Gerry Dee, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, yeah.
Very very big name in Canada. You know, how did that experience sort of come to pass? You know what I mean? Like just.
Yeah, I think at the time my agent just reached out to Gerry when he was announced his cross Canada tour, and so there's a bunch of dates in Alberta. So she reached out and said, "Hey, do you need an opening act?" And he said yes. And I think she submitted my clip, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." So that's how I first started doing it. But that initial meeting was so important because I learned about how much work it takes, I think, to make it in this business. Like I realized, I think then within that first interaction, first couple months, that talent's not enough. Like you'll have to, like talent's the baseline thing that gets you in the room. And now it's like, okay, who's really going to work now? Like that was your invitation to come to the party, talent. And now it's like, are you going to put your head down and work and risk failing repeatedly and getting up and going again? Like, so his work ethic was just so admirable. I'm like, oh, you're not just resting on this one thing you did. You're now going to take that and move on to the next thing, and then take that and move on to the next thing. There was always multiple pots on the stove at all times. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest thing I learned from him, was like, you need to put your head down and constantly create something. And, you know, so that was, that was invaluable to see that early on.
I think you had mentioned at one point you guys were in the car, you were driving to a show, and he was like on his laptop writing an episode of Mr. D or something, taking phone calls for shows and things like that. And that's you just telling me that story was huge. I'm like, yeah, that's like, I think that was one of the things that I hit early on in the industry was I saw a lot of comics who I was coming up with who were all like, hey, how come I'm not getting called for shows? And how come, you know, this guy's getting that and I'm funnier than this guy? And hey, how did you, like, even myself, like, I don't consider, when I was new, I just considered myself trying things like reaching out to other clubs and stuff like that. I wasn't really sure whether or not that was something that was, going to work, but you got to try something, right? You can't just sit and wait for the phone to ring. And like I said, a lot of guys would sit around and sort of talk about who deserves what and why is this person getting that. And when we were discussing that, you were saying that was where that term comedy cancer comes from, because, you know, working with a guy like Gerry Dee who, you know, we finish the show and then you go back to the hotel, you go to sleep. You're not sitting up all night drinking and complaining about who's succeeding in what and who deserves what. You go back to bed, you get up early and you start working the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you start doing what it takes.
I think it's, I mentioned it on my podcast, I think earlier this year too, that I think people get into comedy thinking that the work is over, like they're leaving the 9-to-5 world. I don't have a boss. I can do what I want. How much fun. You're right. You can drink and party and do all this stuff. And it's like, you can, but I think you realize the people that are the most successful in this business are the ones that are talented, but also work really, really hard. And that's not their rituals at all. Mm-hmm. So like, be like, yeah, I just get up when I want and do what I want and whatever. It's like, they just don't adopt that. And that goes from like Shama Junder, Mark Critch, like all these people have had success in the business. When you look at the blueprints and the common thread that goes through all of them, there's just a work ethic that's kind of at a higher rate than other people. Doesn't mean they're more talented. It just means they work harder. And I think that's the double-edged sword of comedy, right? Hey, you don't have a boss anymore. Congratulations. So now you have to set the standards for yourself.
That's
and
the toughest
that's
discipline
really difficult to do.
Yeah, it's the toughest discipline. I had that same thought, you know, like I'm not going to have the 9-to-5 anymore. I have never worked harder in my life
Yeah.
than doing stand-up comedy. And not necessarily physically hard, but I can tell you the mental taxation sometimes, because it really is. I mean, I got to a point where, if I sit down and try to watch a TV show in the middle of the day, I feel guilty. I'm like, I could be doing something. I could be making a poster or sending an email or plugging
Yeah.
something on social. Like there's something I can be doing right now to further myself comedically. And even when you do, you can put the full day in, right? Self-employed, you're never off the clock. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And there's two sides to it, right? Like there's the artistic side you're talking about where, you could be writing jokes or fixing jokes or, working on your set, whatever it is. But then there's the business side of it with marketing and learning more about social media. And like, you're an entrepreneur, you really are. Like, but a lot of people go into it not thinking that. It's just like, I'm a comedian, man. It's like, okay, great. But your product is your comedy. So that makes you an entrepreneur. You have to find ways to get your product out there, to find who your audience is. All those things takes work, and it takes digging and trying to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So I almost divide them into two categories of like the artistic side, generating material, working on your act, and then there's the business side of learning about things, about budgets and about marketing and what works for ads and all those things. So
Absolutely.
that's something I've had to adopt, that mentality. I think I always had the artistic part because that's the fun part, right? Like
Right.
I enjoy working on jokes and crafting material. I enjoy that, building a set. The other part I didn't enjoy. I'm like, oh my God, I got to watch a YouTube video on like Instagram marketing or whatever it is. But you realize you're competing against everybody else that's out there, and not just in your field, but you're competing for an audience's attention in a world where they have so many things yelling at them. Look at me, go to this restaurant, go to this show, come here, visit this place. It's like you're all part of that, when you're trying to put yourself out there as something that's worth looking at. So I think adopting that mentality about, okay, how do I become better at the business side of it is also equally as important. I think again, that's what these people did who are successful. They understand it's a business. And so how do I learn from that stuff?
Well, when I first started too, like I suggested to other comedians and stuff, like I got headshots in the first year, and I'll be honest, at the time I thought, I don't know what I'm going to be using these for. I'm not really getting booked where they're putting my headshot out or anything, but I'm like, I want to take it seriously, right? And if I want to be taken seriously, it's that whole fake it till you make it. But I remember just when I'd ask other comedians, they go, well, I don't need headshots or a website yet. I got nothing to promote. And I go, when I started doing it, I was learning what I didn't like in my, my headshots. I was learning what I didn't like on the web and all the things I had to learn in order to do that. And I'm like, why would you wait until you need these things to start ironing the wrinkles out, like working the bugs out of these things? It's like, why not be learning comedy and developing that and developing the business side at the same time? So anyone who's listening, there's a lot of people who might, this is just a side note, I'm sure you were, again, back to the comedy cancer, is sometimes, you'll try to, put headshots out or build a website or try to develop something. And other people, in the community be like, well, you're not ready for that yet. You should, what are you doing that for? You don't need that. You don't need a website. Like, look at this guy, pretending to be bigger than he. And it's one of those things that's part of the comedy cancer, man. People will try to drag you down when you're trying to learn and develop yourself. You need to work on these things. You need to know these things because someday you will require them. And, if you just start learning how to promote yourself on social media and all that, I mean, always be honest. Don't say that, you're the biggest headliner in Canada if you're not, but there's nothing wrong with learning how to put your face on a poster, learning how to, create business cards and how to give them out and start developing an audience. Because again, once you're ready for it, you don't want to be starting at that point. You want to already have something established, some experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, if you go back to the whole entrepreneurial mindset of it, imagine you're going to open up a coffee shop and you don't have a website, you don't have a sign on the door, but you want to be a coffee shop, right? You really want this business to work. That's what you said, right? No website, you have no advertising, you have nothing, and you sit down and wonder why your business is not booming. It's like you have to do the logical steps that anyone would do in a business to put themselves out there in the world.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I realized too, which differentiates comedians across the board, I realized that there's a great saying that I learned a while back, which is show me where you put your money and your time, and I'll tell you what your priorities are.
Right.
So comedians, for example, would have no problem spending $100 at a bar, but if they were going to have to pay $100 to get headshots done or to get a video clip done with a couple cameras, they're like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. So it's like, yeah, but you say you want this success, right? That's what you said. You told me you wanted this. So then we look at where you put your time and where you put your money, and they don't match up.
Yeah.
because your time and money are going over here playing video games and getting drunk 4 nights a week. Whereas the thing you say you want is over here and it needs these steps. So I had that realization early too. It's like, if I don't match up that with the actual goal I have, then I'm full of it. Like it's like anyone can talk about it, what they want. It's like, but again, show me your time and where your money goes. And then we'll say, okay, yeah, well, those are priorities for you then. Cause clearly we have a log of it. We can see where it is you're putting your time and money. So it sounds simple when it's broken down that way, but I'm amazed still at some really talented people who just their rituals don't match up with what they say their goals are.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, it's absolutely. And I haven't heard that saying, but you're absolutely right. And that's the thing, right? And it's easy to sit back and look at what everyone else is doing. Oh, this is this and this is that, you know, but they're working.
And a part of that too, dude, is that comedy cancer thing. And I don't know if we explained it really, but comedy cancer is when you're sitting in the back of the room with a bunch of other comedians and all you do is shit on other comedians and you complain about why you're not where you're supposed to be and why that person got that. And you got a hoster full of excuses as to why your career is not where it's supposed to be and excuses as to why someone else is doing better, when really you should just put your head down and work harder in every aspect of your own career. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to do because that means looking in the mirror and going, oh, I got to be better in certain areas. And it's uncomfortable. A lot easier to just look out and fire off bullets at other people and whatever. And I don't know, I feel like you can do that, but you end up miserable and bitter and angry and all those things. And the people who don't do that, who just work hard and trying to improve themselves in every way, they tend to just do better in life. And they're actually happier too. Like they really are happier.
And that's the thing too, is they're new, they're having fun on stage. They're hanging out with their buddies, right? They're in that circle. Just to share a quote back with you is I like that one where it's like, you know, you got to change something. I know it's fun to drink and all that time, but you got to make that saying is some people hate change so much they're willing to fail. Some people hate failure so much they're willing to change. And
yeah, I love that.
That's
I love that.
Yeah, and it's so huge because that's the thing is you can sit there and go, I'm not gonna do it. It's like, well, then you're gonna fail. But if you once you get sick of it and you decide, okay, I gotta make a change, something's gonna be different, then you're gonna see yourself come out of it. And I haven't been doing it that long, and where I'm at, you know, in terms of where I'd like to be, are two different places. But at the same time, we can just start throwing quotes at each other. Is that one that's like, you don't have to be better than anybody else, you just have to be better than you were. You know what I mean? So as long as you're improving, you know what I mean? Then that's all that matters. Comparison is the death of happiness, right? So you keep and put all the guys that you like and how he's doing this and he's doing that. All you will do is create just the.
And I think I agree with all that. I think part of the problem too with change is that, you know, you become a comedian, you get accepted into this community, you know, your little class, I guess, of people who all start at the same time. You're meeting all these other comedians. So there's a part of you that wants to just stay in that community, right? Which means just doing the same things that everybody else is doing. To step out on an island on your own and start doing things that are different and taking risks that other people are taking, maybe business-wise or even creatively. We know people who are, you know, their act is totally different and off the wall and whatever. Like, that's really difficult because you still want to be part of that community. You still want that camaraderie. And now you're off on an island on your own and you can feel very alone. But at the end of the day, if that's what you feel you were meant to do, you got to do that anyway. Like, otherwise you're never going to be happy. So you might as well go off on the island. And guess what? There'll be other people on the island. There just won't be as many people as there was on the old islands. Right. You know what I mean? Not that it's better or worse or anything. I'm just saying, if you follow your own true north, that's going to mean you're leaving a certain area. Like, and I don't mean that in terms of an egotistical way. I mean that in literally, not everyone wants the same things you want. Not everyone approaches the job the same way. So just accept that.
Well, and I love, one of the reasons I love talking because it does bring all my favorite sort of motivational quotes to the surface. And it's funny that you were speaking about the island because one of the ones that I like is you can't discover new oceans if you're afraid to lose sight of the shore.
Yeah, you know, man, burn the boats. You got to take the island.
Yeah,
I like the one. Take
keep
the island, burn the boats.
Yeah,
you know, like you ain't going back. So here we go.
And just the thing is, if you're afraid to get out of your comfort zone, then you're never going to explore anything new. You're never going to find something that
totally agree.
You know, yeah. So I love talking. And one of the things too, just something over the last year or so, it's worked for me. It's worked for others in terms of just keeping the perspective. Was you're now at a point where, you know, I met you working at Absolute Comedy, and since then I've seen you really develop in terms of just producing your own shows, because one of the things that I want to share is, like, in the industry in Canada, it's like, there's comedy clubs, and you think to yourself, oh, there's only so many clubs and this and that, and that's where the level I'm at is, how do I get into new clubs and stuff? But, you know, after talking with you, because you always see these guys in theaters, And even in comedy, when you're new, you hear guys going, oh, this guy's doing theaters now, right? There's that transition from going to, doing clubs to theaters. And you think, oh, it's just that they were sold out at the clubs so much that they had to do it. And it's not. It's for what you were sort of, explaining to me, is there's a lot of relevance, and I really want to share it with the comedians who are listening, is that whole, like, everyone's unhappy. Part of that comedy cancer thing is, why is this guy getting the work here and why am I not getting it? For whatever reason, right? Or the pay here sucks and why don't they pay us enough? And you put it so simply, and that's usually the best way, that the information just sometimes it's so simple what the answer is. And that's, you were saying, well, you know what? You can go rent a theater and you can charge what you want and you can be whatever spot you want to be on the show. If you're not happy with how someone else is doing it, just go do it yourself. And it's
just a business model. Like, comedy clubs are a business model. Here's how we do it. Here's how the money breaks down. And as a comedian, you decide agree or don't agree to it. So there's really no argument. There's really no, like, this is what we said we're going to pay you. This is what it is. Whether there's 10 people or 100, this is what you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So there's no risk on your end, right? That's comfort, safety. The other part, as you said, renting out a venue, now you got your own money involved. Now you're taking a risk. Now you're going to see if people come. So that's scary, and that's leaving the comfort zone, right? And it's terrifying, and I get that. But I always felt like you just have to change your mindset. Like, you're an entrepreneur. You're running a business. How do you want to run your business? Like, you can sit here and complain about how this business is run, or you can try and leave that business model from time to time and go do your own thing. Like, but that's all a choice. You choose to be in it or you choose not to be in it.
Right.
So you really can't complain to the system. The system is what it is. It's always been the same.
Right.
That's the way I kind of looked at it. So it's like the fly smacking its head off the window. Like, maybe this way, maybe this way. It's like, you've never got it that way. So when do we readjust and go in a different direction? So, you know what I mean?
I love that.
It's like, who do you blame? You don't blame the window. The window's going to be the window at all times. It's like, I'm here and it's going to be difficult. Okay. All right. Well, I know that data, and now I need to take that data and try to go elsewhere. So,
and it's so simple. So can I ask then, like, because now, like you said, you're an entrepreneur, you do your own thing. What is it? What's your daily process? How do you start your day?
I like to start up with my dog, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, staring me right in the face at probably between the hour of 5:22 a.m. and 6, and he'll demand breakfast. I will then get up, do that. Normally, I try and do that, get some coffee, and then go to the gym. I like to try and get underway early if I can, just because if I do it later, I know I'll talk myself out of it. I try and do that. I usually come back then. It's like answering emails and stuff. I heard a really cool tip a little while ago about not opening your email first thing in the morning or checking your phone first thing in the morning. Because if you have a list of things that you want to do, like let's say from the night before, the minute you open your email, you now adopt someone else. You now adopt someone else's agenda. Yeah. So now someone has sent you an email that they want a response to. Guess what? That's on your list now. Yeah. As opposed to, well, I didn't have that on my list. I had a bunch of other things that I wanted to do. And now I got all this to answer to. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I relate to that perfectly, because I joke with Crystal all the time that I've got, today looks pretty empty. I'm going to do this, and I line up my own agenda. This is what I'm going to do. And then as soon as I open the emails or start looking at the text messages, somebody needs this, somebody needs that. And I guess it's a good way, because with me artistically, which has been pretty thin lately, is that I just go, okay, well, I gotta help this person have it. And again, it's that resistance in the back of your head that just says, no, go do those things. Don't do your art.
Yes.
Go do those things. Yeah. And you're still being productive. I'm doing air quotes at Trent and Skype right now, but you're being productive, right? So at the end of the day, what'd you do today? This, and that. But my fucking whiteboard to the side here still has everything on that still that I was going to do. So just as soon as you said, don't answer your phone, don't look at your emails, I'm like that. I relate to that right away, because that is exactly what happens. My agenda goes completely to what everything else needs. Now, there's a bit of anxiety related, because there's times my memory is getting worse and worse. So sometimes I'll get an email like, hey, can we get those headshots, please? Or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, can you please fill out that government form that we asked for 3 weeks ago? Oh shit. Cause I'll even check my email at a red light. Which is a horrible thing to do. If it's a long light, I'll just scroll to see if there's any new emails. And what happens is I'll click it real quick just to see, okay, there's that. And then, put it away, go back to driving. Such a bad admission right now. But But I forget it. It's not a blue dot anymore that I have to look at. So it just, and then of course 16 more emails before I get home. It's been buried and I totally forget. So sometimes I feel like I got to check my email just to make sure I haven't, you
Yeah,
know.
it's hard, but it gets back to what you talked about earlier too, about like just setting your own standard for yourself on your day. Like you don't have a boss, so like you literally can do everything or you can do nothing. So what are the priorities for the day? What has to get done today? Why does it have to get done? And a lot of times you got to start with why, right? Like why are you doing what you're doing, as opposed to just, well, it's what I've always, So I try and do that. I mean, it doesn't always work. I mean, sometimes you get an email in the middle of the morning, whatever it is. But I think trying to figure out, okay, what do I want my day to look like, and trying to stay as close to that as I can, I find that works pretty well for me. And then I feel organized, because for a while I would feel like you can just, again, because there's no structure, you can feel like you're drowning. It's just, you can do everything or you can do nothing. And it's like, well, what do I do and what do I not do? And so I was trying to find some structure in it. So kind of done that. Trying to spend some time writing every day, whether it's going over old bits. And I found this new app that a Calgary comedian developed here, Derek Sweet, called the Comedy Companion. And
I'm
it
going to
allows
edit
you
this
to
out,
put
by
all
the
your
way. I'm just kidding. Just going to edit out the plug.
You're like, you know what?
You tell them to send a check or I'm
editing
editing
on the podcast.
Sorry, I apologize. What was
Yeah,
it called? What was it called?
it's called the Comedy Companion app,
Okay.
and it allows you to put all your jokes in there, so you can write about and put notes in there. And you can also build set lists, so it allows you to transfer jokes over to a set
Wow.
list. You can put a time there as well. So if you've timed it out, it's 7 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever. So I started having a lot of fun with that over the last week or two, and just organizing some stuff there. So then it's on your phone. You can kind of just go through it before a show or a day. So try to spend some time writing or creative in that way. And then the other part is the business side, whether it's like meeting with my manager about upcoming tour dates, where do we want to play, why do we want to play there, when, venues, all that stuff. So it's a lot of stuff. Of course, there's social media and putting ridiculous stuff
Yeah,
on
there's
Facebook
never
and
a shortage
Instagram.
of work, that's for sure. There's never like
Well,
that.
yeah,
That's
I've always said this to people here in Calgary. I'm like, when people tell me they played video games for 4 hours, I'm like, how?
yeah.
How did you play video games for 4 hours? I don't understand where you found the time to play video games for 4 hours. I just don't have it. Like, I don't even have a kid, and I still don't have 4 hours to play video games. I
Right.
just don't like. So again, I don't know. Everyone sets their own schedule, I guess, when you're an entrepreneur, if you look at it that way. So
Well, it's like that automatic millionaire stuff where you're investing now to have it later. Whereas a lot of people, it's like you make the $500, you spend it right away. So it's like that's fine. You can just stay down here always broke, and where
yeah,
you're at, or you can just sacrifice now. Put the time is the currency, not money, but put the time in now, and hopefully you see a larger return on that investment later, as opposed to just oh, I spent five
yeah.
minutes writing a joke and then tried it out at an open mic or whatever. Like I can see that. If you don't mind my asking, this is something that's been very fascinating for years. I've never explored it because it doesn't really exist in Ottawa. But you're saying you have a manager. How did that come about? Because I know some comics who are larger have a manager. How do you go from just
Yeah.
being I represent myself, I send my own emails, to getting a manager? Yeah, I mean I don't know if that's
Well,
an answer
again,
you had.
I felt, yeah, again, I felt like I was drowning in a way, because it felt like I was doing this touring stuff. And I mean, you've produced shows, so imagine, instead of producing one show now, you've got 7 tour dates on the calendar. We're talking contracts, insurance liability, marketing, like print media, social media, all these things. You still have to go up on stage and do stand up. You still have to generate new material. You're still trying to be involved as a as a husband in a marriage. You're a dog owner. Like, there was just too many things. I had too many balls. I was like, I can't do this. So I needed someone who had a little bit of some business expertise to go, I can handle this chunk of stuff. And so that's where I felt like it wasn't an ego move. It wasn't a
No, no, God,
like,
no.
I'm at the stage where I need whatever. It was literally a workload move, where I'm like, I need to delegate some of this stuff to someone who I trust and I feel can do it, and who wants to do it also too. So that's kind of the point that I got to. And then it allows me now to not make excuses for other stuff. It's like, well, now you have more time to write. There's no excuse. You have a manager who's dealing with all A, B, and C. That's
Mhm.
off your plate, and now you have time for this. So it just freed me up to do more of the stuff that I should have been doing. I found I was spending way too much time on the business side and not enough time on the creative side, if that makes
So
sense.
is that someone you had to go seek out, or did you receive offers to have a manager?
Yes, someone asked me to go for coffee. He's like, hey, man, want to have a chat with you, whatever. So I went for coffee and hit it off right away. We looked at the world the same way, like life in general the same way, in terms of you got to create your own opportunities, you got to work hard, all those things.
That's great.
And just seemed to make sense. So I was like, yeah, let's go for it. So it's been great. Like in all honesty, and again, not because of career status, but just because of what I wanted to do, I probably could have used it a couple of years ago. Like I look back now and go, oh man, I would have been way more productive creatively if I'd had someone to help me with that. And I had someone for a while, but they had a full-time job and then they had a baby and I just didn't have time to do it. They did as great job as they could. So then there was a big gap where I couldn't find anyone else. So then this person came along and I was like, this is great. So it's worked out really, really well. Yeah. So Jake Hirsch is my manager and he's been tirelessly working hard and doing and loves doing the part that those things as well. As I didn't enjoy doing them as much, whereas he actually enjoys doing that stuff. So it just kind of works out. Yeah, it just kind of worked out.
It's nice when you have half of the thing, because that's the thing. Sometimes I bury myself in the work and the production part. I have fun designing posters and new logos and coming up with new ideas for new ventures and things like that. And then the whole, the writing part, like I use the workload as an excuse to not do the writing a lot of the time.
Right.
Because just with the ADD or anxiety or whatever it is, I cannot stare at a blank piece of paper and just be like, produce. But if I know,
well, it's funny. No, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries. I was just going to say, but in terms of, doing a post or something, I know exactly all the information. Everything that I have to put out is there. It's just a matter of putting out. Whereas putting it on paper in terms of the joke or the material, I'm like, shit, I don't even know what it is. All I'm putting out, I write the first idea or the first premise line, and then it's like, now what? So
yeah, I think it happens to a lot of people who start their own business. Like I have friends who are physiotherapists and chiropractors and all that, and they open up a clinic, and the majority of their time is spent like filling out government forms and insurance liability stuff. And you got to do this. They got into the business because they love being a physiotherapist or a chiropractor and helping people and being hands-on. And now they spend all this time doing paperwork at a desk and just, so you can really slide down that slope pretty quickly because there is an aspect of that has to be done. So I was like, okay, well, can I find someone who wants to do that and is willing to do it? And that frees me up to do the thing that I really love, which is creating and generating material and performing. And then I still need to be engaged in that and know where it is. And we talk about it and meet about it. But at the end of the day, then I have time to do the stuff that why I got into it, which was creating comedy and performing. So I have more time to do that.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And just in terms of course, like the biggest piece of news on yourself, at least, what I've seen on social media is you're becoming the cast member of This Hour is 22 Minutes. Like there's not a lot of huge Canadian television shows, but in terms of something that's established, it's got a history of being good comedy in Canada. I mean, it outlasted Air Farce.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I mean?
So we're referring to it as like I'm part of the on-air team.
Is that what the official? Yeah, the on-air team.
Yeah. So it's like I'll be doing a lot of the remotes, and I'll probably be jumping in some sketches and stuff too. So yeah, man, it is a huge honor because, like I said, I've been there a couple of times as a writer for different stints, and you're walking down the hallway and you see like all the old pictures of the old cast members, and there's a lot of history involved with it. And everyone there is super cool, so talented. I mean, everyone knows about the cast; they're amazing, but also the writers. And the writers are great. The set designers, the people who do makeup and the costumes, and the people who do the technical production stuff, like the field producers. Everyone is so talented and so nice. So it's like one big family there for the most part. And so it's gonna be exciting to get there, man. Like I'm really jacked to get going and just fire some stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, man, that's great. I mean, like I said, I joke that I haven't watched in years. I haven't had cable in years, so that's the real
there
reason.
You go.
I dabble.
You've been
here
living
and
in
there.
a cave for.
Well, I have Netflix.
Well, okay, there you go.
Right,
You
I watch what I want. Unfortunately, they don't have a whole lot of Canadian pop culture political shows available for streaming on Netflix. But no, I mean like that's so awesome to see that. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're gonna have.
Well, it's an odd thing too, because as for being a stand-up for 13 years, probably 11 of which have been full-time, I haven't had a day job in 11 years. So like to actually have to go in somewhere every morning at early in the morning, and you have a boss, you have a HR department, and all that stuff. Like when I first went there for the writing stints, that was really different because I'm like, oh, this is a job. Like I got to be here every day. Like I was here yesterday, but you want me back again tomorrow. Like I got to be somewhere.
Yep.
So it was a mental adjustment just to have a job again, but it's a pretty unique job, obviously. Like it's a lot of fun, and creating a lot of stuff. And again, everyone is so talented and funny. You can't help but be better because you're around such great, talented people. It's like it just raises the bar for you.
Absolutely. And it's and a little piece of trivia is that it has always been and is still filmed in Halifax, right? Is it Halifax that it's filmed?
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. A lot of folks think it's in Toronto, but it's always been done in Halifax. Yeah. So, and the great thing about being in Halifax, because it is a smaller city, East Coast, people are so friendly and nice, but also they've made that show their own. Like they're very proud of it. When you're out and about in the city, like people know what 22 minutes is, and then they're really supportive of it. And like tickets don't last because every Monday is a live taping, and I mean like it's just jammed every single Monday. Like people can't wait to get tickets to come and watch the thing and watch it. So it's a great city. It's a great city to be in actually because it's a great community there, and they really put their arms around the show for sure.
And you've been obviously several times to Halifax.
Yeah, I've done the festival 3 times there, and I've been out for 3 different writing stints with 22. So
I'm going for the first time next week. Crystal and I are going to Halifax. We're driving there. We're driving the full day. Yeah, 14 hours just drive. So it's going to be like more like 16 by the time we stop for gas and get food and things like that.
No, it'll be great, man.
Yeah, we're going to check out the Cabot Trail, which is another whole day of driving away from Halifax and driving around the Cabot Trail.
Yeah.
And then we drive back. We're going to check out, a couple of little areas, Fisherman's Cove, and try to get some of the picturesque things, quick swim in the ocean kind of thing. Do you have any suggestions of maybe places to check out while in Halifax?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of like restaurants and shops and stuff downtown. I mean, it's like they got the harbor area too with the boardwalk and stuff. So there's all sorts of great places to get like fish and chips and stuff and those things. Especially this time of year, the weather will be great. And then of course outside of Halifax, you have places like Lunenburg, which is like going back in time. Like it's like like the houses are really tight together, really cool, beautiful. Mahone Bay, all those areas are like. It is. You feel like you're going back in a time machine. It's beautiful, like beautiful, beautiful country and oceans.
Lunenburg's come up a few times in.
You should. If you get a chance, it's worth the drive. It's worth checking out.
Is it far? We're only in Halifax for we have the one day, and we're spending most of that day headed towards the Cabot Trail. Yeah. So we've got a little bit of the next morning. Like we're gonna get a donair while we're there because everyone says the donair is different.
Of course you will. Of course you will. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a bit of a haul. Yeah, Lunenburg. I mean, it's not. If you only have the one day, you'll have to be pretty economical about how you're going to spend your time, obviously. So, it's just beautiful, beautiful territory. It's Halifax is great. It's a great city.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. I thought I'd pick your brain on that one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you will find a drinking establishment if that's what you're worried about, Justin. You will find
I'm not worried about that.
Some kind of pub with live music and a cold beer. You will be able to find that and locate that in Halifax.
I think I'm going to be so exhausted after a 16-hour drive and then another whole day of driving around the Cabot Trail. I mean, it's going to be beautiful, and then of course, and then the very next day driving another 16 hours home. I'm gonna.
You're literally just out and back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we're out driving around, like just driving. CC. I've got a friend who works at a waterfront restaurant there, so we're gonna have some fresh. I'm not. Here's the biggest thing. I'm not a seafood fan. I may have said this in the podcast already. I'm not a seafood fan. I don't like sushi. Okay. I it's just the smell and taste of fish, and I always hear the same thing when I tell people that. They're like, "Well, you got to try it when it's fresh, and if you go somewhere where they're good at it, it doesn't stink like fish or anything like that." So. Part of her bucket list was to see the ocean, so I'm like, while we're there, we may as well try. Doesn't get any fresher than right there at the ocean kind of thing. So
yes,
I will try it, and if I don't like it there, I think I get to punch the person who says it to me in the face next time. Well, you got to try it when it's fresh. You know what I have? And fuck you and your false advertisement.
I find that with people who love sushi, you tell someone you don't like sushi, they can't even accept it. That blows their mind. They're like, well, what'd you have? Where'd you have it from? It's like, how about you accept I don't like sushi? You know what I mean? Like, why? It's almost like a cult. They're just like, well, no, you got to come with us. We go to this place called the Globefish. It's the best sushi. Like, I don't like it, but like they cannot get their head around the fact that how is it that someone could not like this thing that I adore?
I tried, the kids love, what is it? Like dried seaweed? Like,
horrible.
That flat. Oh my God, they love it. I tried a piece the other day, and you remember, you ever have fish and you shake those flakes on top of the water and it smells like this stinky. It fucking tasted like I was eating fish food, and I was like, this is how much we paid for it and what it tasted like. I'm like, and that's what I feel like about a lot of seafood. I had way back when I worked for TELUS, they opened a new office building in Ottawa. It was like one of their
Mm-hmm.
main headquarters or whatever, and they pulled out all the stops for this grand opening. You know, tons of hors d'oeuvres and an open bar, but all the hors d'oeuvres they had were all fish. Or not fish, sorry, I apologize. Seafood. Sweet food, not sweet food at all.
Sweet
Seafood.
food.
Yeah, so it was like scallops and shrimp and oysters. And I remember looking at the oyster bar, and they're like, have you ever had oysters before? And I go, no, that looks disgusting. I'm not interested in that. And then of course a gorgeous woman in a very low cut dress was like, oh, you've never had one before? You should have one with me. And I'm like, okay.
Easily led. You were easily led. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was, it was so funny because I go to have one and she's putting like the horseradish and the sauce and everything on it. And I go to pick it up and do the same. She's like, no, if you've never had it before, you got to try it the way it is. And of course you see people just suck them out of the shells. Well, I went to suck it out of the shell and it wouldn't come. So I guess it wasn't shucked properly or whatever. So I had to stick my teeth into it and rip it out of the shell with my teeth.
Wow.
And then I swallowed it and I was like, ugh.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah, and I remember it was just like, when you see those horror movies and a slug crawls into someone's mouth and then down their throat, like that's what it felt. I was just like, that was horrible. I remember just going crunch, 2 bites, like crunch, crunch, and then swallow. It felt like there was glass in the middle of a snot bubble. And it was just, I'm like, that was awful. She's like, well, now you can try one with the stuff. And I'm like, all right. So I tried the stuff, I sucked it down, and all I tasted was the horseradish and the sauce. And I'm like, there's nothing to that. I go, this is what an expensive habit to have. You know what I mean? Or they're delicious. They're $3. And she goes, well, they're an aphrodisiac. And I remember saying this again, open bar. I go, I would have fucked you bore those. All right. I didn't need.
Wow. You're like, yeah, you know what?
Well, she laughed. Shower. I go, I didn't need these horrible things. Very expensive. I feel bad for any guy who's out there who's like, I kind of would like to be interested in, sexual activity right now, but maybe these oysters will help get me in the mood.
Yeah. I wonder if it actually tastes the same to you and to other people. Like, that's the thing I question. Like, I'm the same thing with cilantro. Like, I hate it. My wife loves it.
Don't like
and
it
I'm
at
like,
all.
I'm like, are we tasting the same thing? Like, I know we both bit off the same part, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure my experience is different than your experience. Because there's no way what I'm tasting you could taste and go, I love this.
Like, it's got this weird, like, soapy mint taste, cilantro.
Yes.
It's just this, like,
overpowering. It's overpowering of everything else. It's like, I don't get it. Like, I just don't understand. So I guess that's why the world has different people in it.
That's why. That's something like cilantro. I would have the weirdest list of people I would get rid of, and a lot of it would be based on food preferences.
Yeah, you're like, you know what? Can't be around.
I don't care about race, creed, or color, sexual orientation. But if you like tomatoes, I will fucking get rid of you. I
base it on whether or not you put the shopping cart back in the cart corral after you finish. That's how I divide. There's 2 groups of people. There's that person who does, and there's that person who doesn't. And I ain't got time for the person who doesn't.
I do the half-assed attempt. Right? If there's like
you just throw it that direction?
I find an empty parking spot and I park it right in the middle of that. So it inconveniences someone else. They have to get out and put it away for me. I'm joking. That's not my actual strategy.
Josh Williams, all about Josh Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
I shop primarily at Costco, and there's usually someone will be like, all right, I'll just give me the cart. Just take it. I go, okay. So
good enough. Yeah.
I've been bred. So yeah,
now when quick scan.
Yep.
Okay, that's everything.
Yeah, everything's in there. They go, just leave the cart. We want the spot. I go, okay. I park it behind the car next to me. So now when I park anywhere else, I'm like, where's the guy that wants my cart? Where's the other car?
Yeah.
My spot.
What is this thing? What is happening? Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that trip. And yeah, dude. I mean, I'm thrilled to see all the good things happening for you. You know what I mean? Like I said, you're a funny guy, great friend. And I appreciate you taking the time to do the podcast with me, and of course being patient while we were doing everything else. Do you have anything big you're plugging? I do have listeners sort of all over the country, so anything coming up in the near future that you maybe like to get some people out to?
Yeah, I have a podcast of my own called The Generators on iTunes, and my podcast is kind of more talking to people. I have a guest every single week. I did one special episode where it's just kind of me reading emails from people, but usually every week there's me with a guest. And I like getting inside people's minds. So like kind of the conversation we've been having, talking to people who are creating or generating anything. Excuse me. So I've had a sports journalist on. Obviously, I have access to a bunch of comedians. Going to be talking to someone who's got a production company, a media production company. I've talked to a personal trainer. So some of these episodes haven't dropped yet, but yeah, I've really been enjoying it. And I feel like every time you talk to people who have a wealth of knowledge, you're just smarter for having had that conversation. So
Yeah.
feedback's been really great so far, and people seem to really be enjoying it. So yeah, we're going to keep it going. It's been fun.
Wicked, buddy. Any shows coming up in the near future?
I'm going to be in Austin, Texas, mid-July is my next show there. I go back to Stephenville, Newfoundland, August 9th, and I'm doing The Gathering with Shama Junder and friends in Burlington, Newfoundland this year towards the end of August. So, yeah, I'm going to be home for quite a bit back in Newfoundland, so that'll be fun. But, yeah, and then it's going to be packing up and heading to Halifax for 22.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And for what I've heard recently, you are a rock star in Newfoundland. Like as soon as you announce a show, the tickets, I can even see the smile on your face right now hearing me say that.
No, I don't know.
But
I'm laughing because I heard you say that the other day on the podcast, and I'm like, no, not the second I announced the show. I got to be honest. I've been very lucky. I have some really loyal people who've been big supporters since the first time I got on stage. So, it's like anything else. I think it gets back to business, but like you're trying to build trust. And I think if people come out and they enjoy the show, then they trust and they'll tell other people and then their friends trust them clearly. So that's why you end up getting a bit of a following. So I've just been really, really fortunate to be able to have that kind of support back there. So yeah, it's always great. And when I go home, obviously I can just notice things that I haven't noticed before. And I can talk about that for half an hour on stage. It's just, it's a magical thing.
Yeah, buddy.
So.
Your website, trentscomedy.com?
It is. It
okay,
is, and always has been. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, all the show dates and stuff will be there, and obviously links to the podcast and stuff too. So
now, your DVD, is that available on your website as well?
We have it as a download. Yes, you can
Okay.
get Positive Vibes, and you purchase through PayPal there. So yeah, that's still up and running. Probably time for me to do another special sometime down the road here.
Where would you do that?
I don't know. I was talking the other day, but I was like, I'd like to have that as a goal in maybe later this year. It's just going to be hard because trying to find the time to get the stage time in to get ready for it.
Right.
With the day job, it's going to be hard now, but maybe early in the new year might be something that could be feasible. But yeah, I'd like to do another one.
Yeah, man. Well, I'd be looking forward to it. I'm probably gonna put a video out on Facebook or Twitter just so people can get a little sample of your stuff. I like to use I believe it was the Halifax, either Halifax or Winnipeg one where you're representing Alberta.
Oh yeah. How ironic is that they have a Newfoundlander representing Alberta at the comedy festival? It's like it's kind of fitting in a way.
Yeah,
so many of us up here
because they go from Alberta, Trent McClellan. You start, and you're like, I am from Alberta now, but I'm originally from it just transitions right from the intro right into
right away.
But then
I'll get emails from people. Going like, "What's this? You're from Alberta now?" It's like, no, that's how they introduced me, sir. I didn't. So that people get their backs about it. But
that's where I came from today. I'm from Alberta today.
I literally just flew here from Calgary. They're just being accurate in terms of he came from. Yes,
it's a legal thing. So, they have to make sure all the T's are crossed. And
I need to know where you flew from. I need to know where you flew from for your introduction. It's like, okay,
don't ask you. Just give us your plane ticket. We'll figure it out from there. Okay.
We'll take it from there.
Yeah, we can see where everything connected and whatnot. Well, awesome, Trent. Really, I appreciate you taking the time, buddy. It's always a pleasure to talk. These interviews. As much as let's put some structure behind it. I mean, you and I fuck around all the time, so I appreciate you taking the time to get a little serious with me and share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So congrats on the like I said, congrats again on the podcast. I've listened to a bunch of episodes, and it's really good. So keep her going.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I still it's a thing. It's a growth thing.
But you know what I realized about podcasting, and I think you'll agree. Is that like you got to find your voice in podcasting too, just like you had to in stand-up. So it's like finding your comfort level, all those things. And so I've realized that with my own, like, what's my vibe going to be? What's my whatever? And that just takes repetition time, and each one I think you get a little closer to that. So it just takes like all things, it takes patience, right? So
yeah, I have very little of that. So this has probably been the best I've ever done in terms of patience.
I'm going to go to Walmart shortly. I'll pick some up for you. They got a big bin of patience.
Must be, because those people sit around and expect very little. So maybe that's where they're getting it from.
They're just sitting there like, I haven't got a chance to go to the old patience bin there yet and put a scoop in there, but I'm going to run over. I got it in bulk. It's right next to the $9 almonds you can get there. The $9 a pound for an almond.
Yeah, if we can find, that's the thing. I would love to just inject that in. Can you imagine just getting personality traits and things like that? You just go pick them up. Patience, ambition, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy, I would buy enthusiasm. The amount of people around me are
you got any? I see you're at I think you're at a Fresh Drive. Do you have any more Fresh Drive?
Fresh Drive?
No? Okay.
It's limited. We can only sell you so much in a day. Too much of it, your head explodes.
We don't want you too driven, sir. We don't want you too driven. Then the accidents happen. So,
can you imagine? And they sell it in cities where people would just leave. We don't sell a lot of drive in Cornwall. We found that it was bad for the local economy.
People just up and left. We kind of backfired. It really kind of hurt the market here.
Really, the first day, a big boom of it.
True.
Just a big boom. They took it and they go, what the fuck are we doing here? And they were gone.
Yeah, we're bringing in a bin of laziness to try and counter it. So we got that coming in next week. So
despair,
but of course, but of course, folks will have enough energy to come down and get it. So it's a real catch-22. I don't know how we're gonna get it done.
Well, my friend,
ridiculous.
I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much. I'm just going to play our outro music here. But yeah, guys, Trent McClellan, super funny stand-up comic, a great guy to know on and off stage. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, buddy.
Thanks, man. You have a good summer, and we'll talk again soon.
Talk soon, pal.